Hey, we are back, I think. Hopefully, we'll wait to start answering questions again until it shows that there's at least a few viewers in here, or if people can see us in the chat.
We're getting a thumbs up.
Hooray. Hooray. I don't know what happened. My audio, I even tried to use my computer speaker and it didn't work. So I don't know. Technology. Okay, I'm just going to log back into Crowdcast in Google Hangouts and then start answering a few more questions. Do you mind if we go a little bit over?
Oh, no.
All right, let me get down to the questions again. All right.
You were like in the middle of some epic answer.
I totally was. I said the best stuff, the most juicy topics when my microphone wasn't working. So I apologize. Completely apologize. No idea what that was.
Sad.
So here's a question. From Fion. How to discuss awkward topics like when you're late for delivering, need to ask for more money to cover scope that's gone out of control, or want to cancel a project with grace?
Yes.
It's a good question.
Again, I think as much as possible, there's that you want to create a win-win situation. My personal philosophy is be kind and be honest. I feel like as long as you're being kind, giving the other person what they need, and also being kind to yourself as well. So it happens. We're human. We overbook things, or we kind of misschedule things. It does happen. So I think as early as possible, kind of being honest about that. Like, hey, I may have been a little aggressive with the timeline, or something has come up and I wanted to check in with you if you're okay with insert whatever, delaying the project, or, and again, it doesn't need to be awkward when someone is asking for something beyond what they've asked you for. I think it's easier said than done. Like, don't make that awkward. I get that. But I think if you have those go-to scripts that you can use when someone asks for the sort of scope increase, and just say, like, no problem, let's bring that back to how that impacts the project. I think that's totally
I have mine memorized.
Yeah, and again, write them out until they become second nature to you. Or give yourself time that if someone's asking for it on a live call and you get flustered live, just be like, let me get back to you on that. Like, there's no reason to answer right away. And then you can kind of take the time you need to carefully craft that email. I don't think you need to give your clients all the details about whatever personal, stuff in your life is coming up. You can do it in a way that is a little more graceful or sensitive, but people are human and it does happen. And I think as long as you're honest about it, sometimes it means a project delay, and sometimes the client doesn't care. Like, sometimes their launch dates have been pulled out of thin air and they just want to launch ASAP. ASAP is not a deadline. So I think there's room for some flexibility there. At least my clients have always been pretty open if that's the case, if I needed more time for something. But in the future, if you find yourself doing this a lot, you need to start extending your client, start padding your estimates, right? Like, I think
buffer your deliverables.
Definitely give yourself more of a buffer.
I think probably the biggest thing for that, and what I see taking things off the rails more than the being late, is the lack of communication when that does happen. So I think if you know, and sometimes you don't, which is fair, but if you know you're going to be late, communicate that to the client before you are late. Otherwise, they're just going to start resenting the shit out of you, because they're like, I was supposed to get this, I didn't get it, now they're mad. Whereas if you tell them, like, look, something came up, I'm going to be a day late, then you've managed their expectations. Even if they're like, oh, I kind of wanted it that day, they're not mad because they know it's coming. And the other thing is that if it happens when you didn't have any foresight or foreknowledge of it, then owning it as quickly as possible. And like, if you said you're going to deliver something at 1 p.m. on Thursday, and it's 1 p.m. on Thursday and it's not done, tell them at 1 p.m. Don't wait until you're done. And I've seen this happen where people think, oh, it's just easier to just not deal with it or to not get back to somebody. And that's just making the project so much worse for you and for the client. So I think being able to communicate with the client, especially when things go wrong, it sucks to have to do that. Like there's no way around it. It sucks, but it's better than just disappearing or not hearing from somebody for a week because they're late. Like it's not worth it in that case.
And I think that's when clients micromanage too, right? They're like, I don't know, my developer fell off the rails. Like this happens all the time where people's designers and developers disappear. Don't be that person, even if you think it's going to take longer. Progress check-ins, like just there's got to be systems in place to kind of let people know what's happening along the way. Don't disappear. Don't disappear.
And always buffer your time. If something's going to take a day, tell the client they'll get it in 2 or 3 every time. Life will shit on your face all the time. It's going to happen. So it's better to be done on time or even to be done a little bit early. And then you look like a hero instead of being late because something came up and then the client resents you and doesn't like you and wouldn't hire you again. And I think a lot more probably than like the skill that I have or my ability to talk to clients, I think people like to work with me because if I say I'm going to do something, it's getting done every single time. And almost all the clients that I've worked with have said, you're not like every other web designer because you do things. And it's so weird to me, but it just requires buffering your commitments, and it just requires paying attention to that and owning things before they get out of hand or before they're a big deal.
Definitely. And I mean, the second part of our question is what do you do when a project has gone out of control or you want to cancel? I mean, I've definitely been in that situation before. And there's been times where I've said like, look, for whatever reason, like this project is not working. Here's everything I've created so far. And I've even like refunded a payment. I've kept the deposit, but I've refunded them their next payment and just said like, take it. Like I'm at this point, I just want to kind of end this on good terms and have you able to move forward with what you need. I just don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole and I'm out of here. But sometimes that means, you know, you've put in way more time than you're being paid for. And sometimes that's worth having to deal with the fallout of a really angry customer. So I'm like, here you go. I don't know if you've had to deal with some.
Oh yeah. Money. Luckily, yeah. Money can make things in business go away. So I would rather give some money back and not have to deal with somebody sometimes. And most of the time, I'm just honest. I'm like, this project is not a good fit for either of us. You're not going to meet your business objectives right now. It's in your best interest as a business to find somebody who isn't me to do this work for you. And if it comes down to the contract, then like, this is the contract that we signed. These are the kill fees. If it's just, I want this off my plate, here's most of the money back. Here are all the files. This is more than I should be giving you, and I wish you the best of luck with your project. It's not going to be me working on it. It's
uncomfortable. I mean, I had this experience maybe 4 years ago. I had my client from hell that kind of propelled me into, I never want to feel this way ever again. How do I avoid this feeling? Yeah. But I had a project manager friend of mine come on, and she took a look at all the Basecamp communication and all the emails, and sat me down and was like, okay, like here's where this went off the rails and why. You've been teaching this client that they're just able to walk all over you and get whatever they want. Okay, how do we repair the damage now? And it was sort of like damage control, but having a project manager's perspective coming in and saying, here's what I'm seeing. I noticed that your proposal didn't quite outline this. Okay, what do we need to do to wrap this fucker up? Like, let's outline it in an email, send it back to the client, and they can decide, okay, our options are we cancel the project and like forget about the final payment and you've got what you've got and we're just gonna walk our separate ways. Or here's what we can do to wrap this up, XYZ, outline it, and like, let's call it a day. And so that was super helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, I think sometimes being able, like I lean on my mastermind group for stuff like that, because it's like, sometimes you're too close to things sometimes to be able to make great decisions. So having somebody else to talk to, whether they're in like the Creative Class Slack or part of a mastermind group or people you know that do similar work, super important. Definitely. So I'm going to skip a few of these questions. How to communicate with clients during a project. So we've already kind of covered that. Email, project management, Slack. Yeah, somebody asked the same question. So we've kind of talked about that already. So here's a good question from Scott. As a software developer, I can't possibly know everything I might need to do in a job. I used to tell prospective clients that If I need to learn something to do their job, then I would do that on my own time. I don't do that anymore, and it seems to send the signal that I don't know what I'm doing. What other mistakes do consultants make to this end, unintentionally sabotaging their own efforts? I think that's a good thing to not say, to tell people that you're going to learn something on your own time. Just do it. Just learn something on your own time, or say, I don't know. Like we said, I think it sounds better to say, like, I will find the answer out for you the next time we talk, instead of, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to go learn something real quick and get back to you. I think it's the way you frame and position your communication is as important as the things that you're saying.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. You don't have to know everything. You're not expected to know everything, but you don't need to like discount your learning or let the client know that you're, sometimes your time on a project does involve going and learning a new skill. It's not something I'm kind of building into the project budget, but I know that as part of my daily activities, there's a certain amount of my time that is spent learning new tech, learning new business skills, marketing.
It's the nature of what we do. Like, things are always changing. So you just have to keep learning.
Yeah.
So one more question here. So last question from Kevin. How do you explain to clients on retainer or recurring services why they need to pay in advance? Is it a good or bad idea to have that policy?
Yeah, I definitely do prepaid retainers, and they're basically pre-booking your time, right? So you have a certain expectation set at the beginning of the month that you're paying for either this scope of work or this many hours of my time. If you've read Dan Moll's pricing thing, maybe you won't be doing retainers based on hours worked anymore. And I try not to as well, but yeah, they're definitely prepaying for that time. So I'm making sure not to book anything else in my schedule because I have my time set aside for that client. So I don't think that's an unreasonable request to make of a client. It just says, you're my top priority. This shows a commitment. It's basically like paying a deposit, but they're just paying it every month to continue that service.
Yeah, and I don't really do retainers right now, but it's the same. Like, a project doesn't go in my calendar unless I have some money on the table, because if there's money involved, then I'm saving that date. If not, we're just talking about the date that they want to start once they give me money. And retainers are the same. It's like every month. If you want me to do the work during this month, you have to show me that you want this to happen. Otherwise, it could take a few months to get to that work otherwise. So it's in your best interest to prepay, because then I allot that. If I have the money, then I've allotted that time just for you.
Definitely. Yeah.
Cool. I think that, and Daryl just said the book that we've been talking about, Pricing Design by Dan Moll, is $6. So it's kind of a good deal.
How does he make money? It's a no-brainer to buy that book for sure. It's awesome.
Exactly. So those are all the questions. I want to say thank you on behalf of myself, and all of the Creative Class people. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Where can people find you on the interweb?
You could probably go to mariepoulin.com. That's probably the main place you're going to see some of my blog posts. Digitalstrategyschool.com, or soon to be Doki, DOKI.io.
Nice.
Thinking of releasing an online course soon. So
nice. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This was awesome. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I think I'm going to try to figure out now how to piece those two videos into one for the replay. But yeah, take care, and I'll see everybody next month.